Welcome to True Crime Cases, where we delve into the darkest corners of human nature. Today's episode unravels a tale of husband's secret love affair with wife's best friend, ends in grisly murder. This is the case of how James Rodriguez's secret affair with his wife's best friend, Sharon Parker, led to a gruesome crime that shocked the community and left a family in ruins. Fairfield, with its tree-lined streets and historic New England charm, had long been considered one of the most desirable places to live in the United States. It was here that the Rodriguez family had built their life, becoming pillars of the community over the course of 2 decades. James Rodriguez, 47, was a prominent real estate developer, known for his charismatic personality and philanthropic efforts. His wife, Catherine Rodriguez, 45, was a well-respected art curator at the Fairfield University Art Museum. Together, they had 2 children, Angela, 17, and Willie, 15. Sharon Parker, 43, had been Catherine's best friend since their days at Smith College. A successful interior designer, Sharon was divorced and lived alone in a stylish apartment in downtown Fairfield. She was a constant presence in the Rodriguez household, often joining them for family dinners, holidays, and summer barbecues. To the outside world, Sharon was the perfect friend, supportive, fun-loving, and always there when needed. The Rodriguez seemed to have it all: a beautiful home on Sasko Hill Road overlooking Long Island Sound, successful careers, and a tight-knit group of friends. They were fixtures at local charity events, and their children excelled both academically and in extracurricular activities. Catherine and James were often seen as the perfect couple, still affectionate and supportive of each other after more than 2 decades of marriage. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic life, cracks had begun to form. James, feeling increasingly restless and unfulfilled in his marriage, found himself drawn to Sharon's vivacious personality and shared interests. What began as innocent flirtation during social gatherings soon evolved into stolen glances and lingering touches. Before long, James and Sharon were embroiled in a passionate affair that threatened to unravel the fabric of their lives. The affair began in the spring of 2004, during a charity gala at the Fairfield Theater Company. While Catherine was busy coordinating with the event organizers, James and Sharon found themselves alone at the bar. The chemistry between them was palpable, and after a few drinks, they shared a kiss in a darkened corner of the theater. From that moment on, their relationship intensified, with clandestine meetings becoming more frequent and daring. James and Sharon went to great lengths to keep their affair hidden. They would meet at out-of-town hotels, using business trips as cover. Sharon would sometimes park her car at the Fairfield metro station, and James would pick her up, driving them to secluded spots along the coast. They communicated through a secret messaging app, their phones protected by passwords unknown to their families and friends. As the months passed, James became increasingly distant from Catherine. He worked longer hours, claiming the pressure of a new development project was taking its toll. Catherine, consumed with her own work at the museum and the day-to-day responsibilities of raising 2 teenagers, initially failed to notice the changes in her husband's behavior. Angela and Willie, caught up in their own adolescent worlds of school, friends, and extracurricular activities, remained oblivious to the growing tension between their parents. Angela was focused on her college applications, hoping to follow in her mother's footsteps and study art history at an Ivy League school. Willie, a talented lacrosse player, spent most of his free time practicing or hanging out with his teammates. The affair between James and Sharon intensified as summer turned to fall. They became bolder in their rendezvous, sometimes meeting at Sharon's apartment when they knew Catherine would be working late at the museum. The thrill of their secret encounters only fueled their passion, blinding them to the potential consequences of their actions. However, as with many illicit relationships, cracks began to appear. Sharon, always more emotionally invested, started to pressure James to leave Catherine. She envisioned a future where they could be together openly, blending their lives and starting anew. James, torn between his desire for Sharon and his commitment to his family, began to withdraw, causing tension in both his marriage and his affair. As autumn leaves began to fall in Fairfield, Catherine's suspicions about her husband's behavior grew. She noticed James's increasing detachment, his secretive phone calls, and the way he seemed to tense up whenever Sharon's name was mentioned. One evening, while James was in the shower, Catherine's curiosity got the better of her. She picked up his phone, surprised to find it unlocked, and discovered a series of intimate messages between James and Sharon. The revelation hit Catherine like a physical blow. The betrayal by not just her husband, but also her best friend, was almost too much to bear. She felt her world crumbling around her, the carefully constructed life she had built with James suddenly revealed to be built on lies. Catherine confronted James that same night, after the children had gone to bed. The ensuing argument was heated and emotional, with James initially denying the affair before finally admitting to his infidelity. Catherine, overcome with anger and hurt, demanded that James end the affair immediately and cut all ties with Sharon. In the days that followed, the Rodriguez household was filled with tension. James slept in the guest room, while Catherine alternated between bouts of anger and deep despair. The children, sensing the shift in the family dynamics but unaware of its cause, walked on eggshells around their parents. James, feeling trapped and desperate, reached out to Sharon. They met at their usual spot, a secluded beach in Westport, to discuss their situation. Sharon, upon learning that Catherine had discovered their affair, pushed James to make a decision. She gave him an ultimatum: leave Catherine and be with her, or end their relationship for good. Torn between his love for Sharon and his sense of duty to his family, James found himself at a crossroads. He promised Sharon he would make a decision within the week, unaware that this conversation would set in motion a chain of events that would end in tragedy. As the week progressed, the tension in the Rodriguez home reached a breaking point. Catherine, unable to bear the thought of losing her husband and the life they had built together, decided to confront Sharon directly. On the evening of October 12, 2004, Catherine told James and the children that she had a late meeting at the museum. Instead, she drove to Sharon's apartment, determined to have it out with her former best friend. What transpired in Sharon's apartment that night would later be pieced together by investigators based on forensic evidence and partial witness accounts. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices and the sound of breaking glass around 9 p.m. At 9:45 p.m., a 911 call was placed from Sharon's phone, but the caller hung up before speaking to the dispatcher. When police arrived at the scene just after 10 p.m., they found a gruesome tableau. Sharon Parker lay dead on her living room floor, the victim of multiple stab wounds. The apartment was in disarray, signs of a violent struggle evident throughout. Catherine Rodriguez was found huddled in the corner of the room, her clothes soaked in blood, clutching a kitchen knife. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community of Fairfield. News of the murder spread quickly, dominating local headlines and sending ripples of fear and disbelief through the tight-knit neighborhood. The idyllic facade of Fairfield's upper-class community had been shattered, revealing the dark undercurrents that had been flowing beneath the surface. Detective Sarah Nguyen of the Fairfield Police Department was assigned as the lead investigator on the case. With over a decade of experience in homicide investigations, Detective Nguyen approached the crime scene with a keen eye for detail. She noted the brutality of the attack and the apparent lack of forced entry, immediately suspecting that this was a crime of passion rather than a random act of violence. As the investigation unfolded, the full extent of James and Sharon's affair came to light. Friends and acquaintances were questioned, revealing that there had been whispers and suspicions about the nature of their relationship for months. Hotel records, credit card statements, and cell phone data painted a picture of a long-standing and intense affair. James Rodriguez, upon learning of Sharon's death and Catherine's arrest, was devastated. He found himself thrust into the spotlight, forced to confront the consequences of his actions in the most public and tragic way possible. The media descended on Fairfield, hungry for details about the salacious affair that had led to murder. Angela and Willie Rodriguez, their world turned upside down,
struggled to come to terms with the revelations about their parents and the loss of their mother to the criminal justice system. They were taken in by Catherine's sister Charlotte, who lived in nearby Westport. The siblings found themselves at the center of a media storm, their every move scrutinized by reporters and curious onlookers. As the case progressed, Catherine's defense team, led by prominent attorney Michael Goldstein, began to build their case. They argued that Catherine had gone to Sharon's apartment with the intention of confronting her about the affair, but that the situation had escalated rapidly. They claimed that Sharon had attacked Catherine first, and that Catherine had acted in self-defense. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture. Led by District Attorney Rebecca Chen, they argued that Catherine had gone to Sharon's apartment with the premeditated intention of killing her rival. They pointed to the brutality of the attack and the fact that Catherine had brought the knife with her as evidence of her murderous intent. As the trial approached, the community of Fairfield found itself divided. Some sympathized with Catherine, seeing her as a wronged wife who had been pushed to the brink by her husband's infidelity. Others viewed her as a cold-blooded killer who had taken matters into her own hands rather than seeking a divorce. The trial of Catherine Rodriguez began in the spring of 2004, drawing national attention. The courthouse in Bridgeport was besieged by media outlets from across the country, all eager to cover the sensational case. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense, as both the prosecution and defense presented their cases. The prosecution called a series of witnesses to testify about the nature of James and Sharon's affair, building a picture of a woman scorned and out for revenge. They presented forensic evidence that suggested the attack on Sharon had been sustained and brutal, arguing that this went beyond self-defense. James Rodriguez was called to testify, finding himself in the uncomfortable position of having to publicly admit to his infidelity. His testimony was emotional and at times contradictory, as he struggled to reconcile his feelings for both Catherine and Sharon. The defense team seized on his evident guilt and remorse, using it to paint a picture of a man whose actions had driven his wife to desperation. Catherine herself took the stand in her own defense. She spoke of her long friendship with Sharon, her happy marriage to James, and the devastating impact of discovering their betrayal. She claimed that she had gone to Sharon's apartment to confront her, but that Sharon had attacked her in a fit of rage. Catherine insisted that she had only acted to defend herself, and that she had never intended to kill her former friend. As the trial progressed, the wider implications of the case began to emerge. It sparked discussions about infidelity, the pressures of maintaining a perfect image in affluent communities, and the lengths to which people might go when their world is shattered. Psychologists and relationship experts weighed in on the case, offering their perspectives on the complex dynamics at play. The impact on Fairfield itself was profound. The community, once known for its idyllic charm, now found itself under a microscope. Residents were forced to confront the reality that even in their seemingly perfect town, dark secrets could lurk behind closed doors. The case prompted many to reflect on their own relationships and the importance of open communication and trust. After a trial that lasted 6 weeks, the jury retired to consider their verdict. The community held its breath, aware that whatever the outcome, lives had been irrevocably changed. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their decision. Catherine Rodriguez was found guilty of second-degree murder. The jury had been convinced that while the killing may not have been premeditated, Catherine had gone beyond self-defense in her attack on Sharon. She was sentenced to 18 years to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving the minimum sentence. The verdict sent shockwaves through Fairfield and beyond. James Rodriguez, his affair having cost him both his lover and his wife, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. He faced public scrutiny and private guilt, knowing that his actions had set in motion the chain of events that led to this tragic outcome. Angela and Willie Rodriguez, their family torn apart, struggled to come to terms with their new reality. Angela deferred her college plans, taking a gap year to process the trauma and support her younger brother. Willie threw himself into his lacrosse, using the sport as an outlet for his anger and confusion. In the years following the trial, the ripple effects of the Rodriguez case continued to be felt in Fairfield and beyond. The tragedy became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of betrayal and the importance of honesty in relationships. The case prompted changes in the Fairfield community. Local organizations established support groups for families affected by infidelity and domestic violence. The school district implemented programs to teach young people about healthy relationships and emotional intelligence. The Fairfield Police Department enhanced its training on recognizing and responding to potentially volatile domestic situations. James Rodriguez, unable to escape the shadow of scandal, eventually left Fairfield. He moved to California, where he attempted to rebuild his life away from the scrutiny of those who knew him. Reports suggested that he had become involved in charitable work, perhaps as a way of atoning for his past actions. Sharon Parker's family, devastated by her loss, established a foundation in her name to support victims of domestic violence. The Sharon Parker Foundation became a prominent force in Connecticut, working to raise awareness and provide resources for those in abusive relationships. Catherine Rodriguez, serving her sentence at York Correctional Institution, became an advocate for prison reform. She wrote a memoir detailing her experiences, which became a bestseller and sparked discussions about the complexities of crime and punishment in cases involving infidelity and emotional trauma. Angela and Willie Rodriguez, with the support of their Aunt Charlotte and extensive therapy, gradually learned to cope with the trauma of losing both parents in such a public and tragic way. Angela eventually went on to study psychology, inspired by her experiences to help others dealing with family trauma. Willie, while struggling with anger issues in his teens, found solace in music and went on to pursue a career as a sound engineer. The Rodriguez house on Sasko Hill Road stood empty for years, a silent reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. Eventually, it was sold to a young family new to Fairfield, unaware of its dark history. Some longtime residents saw this as a symbol of renewal, a chance for the community to move forward while never forgetting the lessons learned from the Rodriguez case. As time passed, the shock of the murder faded, but its impact on Fairfield remained profound. The case became the subject of true crime books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film. Each retelling served as a reminder of how quickly a seemingly perfect life could unravel. Criminologists and psychologists continued to study the case, seeking to understand the factors that led to such a tragic outcome. Dr. Lisa Chang, a forensic psychologist who consulted on the case, noted, "The Rodriguez tragedy illustrates the dangerous cocktail of betrayal, jealousy, and unresolved emotions that can drive individuals to commit acts they never thought themselves capable of. It's a stark reminder of the importance of addressing relationship issues head-on rather than allowing them to fester and escalate." For the residents of Fairfield, the memory of the Rodriguez case lingered long after the media spotlight had faded. It became a part of the town's lore, a case told in hushed tones at dinner parties and social gatherings. Some saw it as a blemish on Fairfield's reputation, while others viewed it as a wake-up call, a reminder that no community is immune to the darker aspects of human nature. The beach in Westport, where James and Sharon had their final meeting, became an unofficial memorial site. On the anniversary of Sharon's death, friends and family would gather there to remember her, leaving flowers and sharing memories of happier times. As years turned into decades, the Rodriguez case remained a topic of interest for true crime enthusiasts and sociologists alike. It was often cited in discussions about the pressures of maintaining a perfect image in affluent communities, the devastating impact of infidelity, and the thin line between love and obsession. The tragedy also had a lasting impact on the legal community in Connecticut. The case was often used in law schools as a study in the complexities of crimes of passion and the challenges of proving self-defense in emotionally charged situations. It sparked debates about sentencing guidelines and the role of mental health evaluations in criminal proceedings. In Fairfield, the community's efforts to heal and prevent future tragedies continued. The local government implemented stricter background checks for real estate agents and other professionals who frequently enter people's homes, a direct response to concerns raised during the Rodriguez trial. The Fairfield Public Library established a special collection of resources on relationship counseling and conflict resolution, available to all residents free of charge. The media's role in the case also came under scrutiny. The intense coverage of the trial and its aftermath led to discussions about journalistic ethics and the impact of sensationalized reporting on high-profile crimes. Some local journalists who had covered the case went on to specialize in reporting on domestic violence and advocating for victims' rights. As new generations grew up in Fairfield, the Rodriguez case became a part of the town's history, taught in local schools as a cautionary tale about the consequences of betrayal and the importance of emotional intelligence. Teachers used the case to spark discussions about healthy relationships, conflict resolution, and the dangers of keeping secrets. The Fairfield University Art Museum, where Catherine Rodriguez had once worked, created a special exhibit titled Art and Emotion, Exploring Human Relationships. While not directly referencing the Rodriguez case, the exhibit was inspired by the tragedy and sought to explore the complex emotions involved in love, betrayal, and forgiveness through various artistic mediums. In the legal world, the Rodriguez case continued to be referenced in courtrooms across the country. Lawyers arguing cases involving crimes of passion often cited the trial, using it as a benchmark for jury selection, evidence presentation, and sentencing arguments. The case became a staple in criminal justice curricula, studied by aspiring lawyers and law enforcement officials alike. As social media and technology evolved, the Rodriguez case found new life online. True crime podcasts delved into the details of the affair and subsequent murder, often uncovering new perspectives or previously overlooked details. Online forums debated the case, with some conspiracy theorists proposing alternative scenarios or hidden motives. The children of Fairfield who grew up in the shadow of the Rodriguez tragedy faced their own challenges. Some reported feeling a sense of collective trauma, a shared experience that bonded them even as it set them apart from their peers in other communities. Support groups formed for these Rodriguez generation kids, providing a space for them to discuss the impact of the case on their lives and worldviews. 20 years after the trial, a reunion of sorts took place in Fairfield. Former classmates of Angela and Willie Rodriguez organized a gathering to reflect on the tragedy and its lasting impact on their lives. The event, held at the Fairfield Theater Company, where James and Sharon's affair had begun, was a somber yet cathartic experience for many attendees. Angela Rodriguez, now a respected psychologist specializing in trauma and family therapy, gave a keynote speech at the gathering. She spoke candidly about her journey of healing and forgiveness, and how the tragedy had shaped her career path. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom had struggled with their own feelings about the case for years. Willie Rodriguez, who had avoided the public eye for much of his adult life, surprised attendees by performing a musical piece he had composed in honor of his mother. The haunting melody and poignant lyrics moved many to tears, serving as a powerful reminder of the human cost of the tragedy. Angela and Willie Rodriguez, their family torn apart, struggled to come to terms with their new reality. Angela deferred her college plans, taking a gap year to process the trauma and support her younger brother. Willie threw himself into his lacrosse, using the sport as an outlet for his anger and confusion. In the years following the trial, the ripple effects of the Rodriguez case continued to be felt in Fairfield and beyond. The tragedy became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of betrayal and the importance of honesty in relationships. The case prompted changes in the Fairfield community. Local organizations established support groups for families affected by infidelity and domestic violence. The school district implemented programs to teach young people about healthy relationships and emotional intelligence. The Fairfield Police Department enhanced its training on recognizing and responding to potentially volatile domestic situations. James Rodriguez, unable to escape the shadow of scandal, eventually left Fairfield. He moved to California, where he attempted to rebuild his life away from the scrutiny of those who knew him. Reports suggested that he had become involved in charitable work, perhaps as a way of atoning for his past actions. Sharon Parker's family, devastated by her loss, established a foundation in her name to support victims of domestic violence. The Sharon Parker Foundation became a prominent force in Connecticut, working to raise awareness and provide resources for those in abusive relationships. Catherine Rodriguez, serving her sentence at York Correctional Institution, became an advocate for prison reform. She wrote a memoir detailing her experiences, which became a bestseller and sparked discussions about the complexities of crime and punishment in cases involving infidelity and emotional trauma. Angela and Willie Rodriguez, with the support of their Aunt Charlotte and extensive therapy, gradually learned to cope with the trauma of losing both parents in such a public and tragic way. Angela eventually went on to study psychology, inspired by her experiences to help others dealing with family trauma. Willie, while struggling with anger issues in his teens, found solace in music and went on to pursue a career as a sound engineer. The Rodriguez house on Sasko Hill Road stood empty for years, a silent reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. Eventually, it was sold to a young family new to Fairfield, unaware of its dark history. Some longtime residents saw this as a symbol of renewal, a chance for the community to move forward while never forgetting the lessons learned from the Rodriguez case. As time passed, the shock of the murder faded, but its impact on Fairfield remained profound. The case became the subject of true crime books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film. Each retelling served as a reminder of how quickly a seemingly perfect life could unravel. The legal implications of the Rodriguez case continued to evolve. Lawyers and judges often referred to the case when dealing with similar situations, and it became a touchstone in discussions about reforming laws related to crimes of passion. Some advocates pushed for changes that would allow for more nuanced considerations of emotional states and relationship dynamics in criminal proceedings. In the realm of public health, the Rodriguez case contributed to increased funding and attention for mental health services in affluent communities. Recognizing that wealth and social status were not shields against psychological distress, many towns like Fairfield implemented comprehensive mental health screening programs and expanded access to counseling services. As Fairfield continued to change and grow, new residents moved in who had no personal connection to the Rodriguez tragedy. However, the case remained an integral part of the town's identity, a reminder of the importance of compassion, understanding, and open communication in building strong communities. The 30th anniversary of the case saw the publication of a comprehensive book titled After Fairfield, The Lasting Legacy of the Rodriguez Tragedy. Written by a team of journalists, psychologists, and legal experts, the book examined the long-term effects of the case on individuals, institutions, and society at large. It became required reading in many sociology and criminology programs across the country. In a surprising turn of events, James Rodriguez, now in his late 70s, returned to Fairfield for the first time in decades to attend a conference on restorative justice. His appearance sparked mixed reactions in the community, with some viewing it as an opportunity for healing and others seeing it as a painful reminder of past wounds. James spoke candidly about his role in the tragedy, expressing deep remorse and discussing his journey towards self-forgiveness and personal growth. As the world continued to change, the Rodriguez case remained a powerful reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the far-reaching consequences of our actions. It stood as a testament to the resilience of communities in the face of tragedy and the enduring human capacity for growth, healing, and understanding. The legacy of the Rodriguez case extended far beyond the borders of Fairfield, influencing discussions about love, betrayal, justice, and community in ways that continued to resonate decades after the events themselves. It served as a stark reminder that even in the most seemingly perfect environments, the human heart remains a complex and sometimes volatile force, capable of both great love and devastating destruction.